Hello everyone, welcome back to the Quality Analyst. If you are working in Agile projects or preparing for a testing role in Agile teams, then today's topic is something you cannot afford to ignore. In real Agile projects, requirements do not stay stable. They keep on changing, they keep on evolving, they get refined again and again. So today we are going to understand the requirement change management in Agile projects, not from a textbook point of view, but from real project experience. By the end of this session, you will clearly understand why requirement changes, how those changes are handled, and what exactly a tester's responsibility is when the changes happen. So let's begin. So in the today's session, we will cover what requirement change means in Agile, why changes are common in Agile, how requirement changes flow in Agile projects, tester's role during requirement changes, and finally a real-time example so you can relate this to your daily work. So this will be slow, detailed, and practical. So let us start with the basics. What is a requirement change? So a requirement change means any modification, addition, or removal of already existing requirement. So for example, adding a new field, changing a validation rule, modifying a workflow, or removing a feature completely. So in Agile, requirement change is normal, not an exception. So this is very different from traditional waterfall projects where changes were considered risky. So now a very important question. Why do requirement change so frequently in Agile? So there are many reasons. So first is business priority changes due to customer feedback comes early, due to the market condition changes, or users realize new needs after seeing working software. So Agile actually welcomes changes even late in the development. So this is one of the core Agile principles. In Agile, the change is not treated as a problem. Instead, Agile teams say, let's adapt quickly. So this means no heavy approval change, no long documentation updates, but controlled and well communicated changes. And this is where change management becomes important. So now let's discuss about what is requirement change management. So the requirement change management is the process of identifying requirement changes, analyzing their impact, approving or rejecting the changes, and implementing them smoothly without breaking the system. In Agile, this process is lightweight and disciplined. So testers play a very critical role here. Now let's talk about how requirements are managed in Agile. So in Agile projects, requirements are usually written as user stories, acceptance criteria, and sometimes supported by mockups or some discussions. So when a change happens, the user story gets updated, acceptance criteria are modified, and the team realigns its work. So everything revolves around user stories, not heavy documents. So how requirement changes enter Agile system? Now let us understand how the changes actually come in. The requirement changes may come after, like may come from the product owner, the client, like from the client feedback, from the UAT testing feedback, or from the internal business stakeholders. So these changes are usually discussed during backlog refinement meeting, okay, sprint planning, or sometimes during the sprint itself. So nothing is done silently. Let's take a real-time example. So the initial requirement was, the login requirement was, like according to the initial requirement, the login requirement says user can log in using username and password. Later the business says we also want OTP based login. So this is nothing but a requirement change. Now as a tester, you must immediately think the new test scenarios across this, against this particular requirement change. What are the new test scenarios? What are the new validations? Regression impact on the existing login, and whether there are security and any usability impacts are there. So change is not just coding, it affects testing deeply. So what is the tester's role during the change? So this slide is extremely important for testers, because when a requirement changes, a tester must understand the change clearly, update their test scenarios and test cases to accommodate the changes, identify some new regression test cases, update the requirement testability matrix if used, and communicate the risk very early. So a tester is not a passive receiver of changes. Okay, now let's talk about the impact analysis by the tester. So the impact analysis means understanding which modules are affected, which test cases need to update, which old functionalities may break. So for example, adding OTP login may impact login UI, the backend authentication, session management, error handling. A good tester always asks what else can break. So now let's talk about handling the changes within the sprint. So sometimes changes come from during an ongoing sprint. So in Agile, small changes may be accepted. Big changes are usually moved to the next sprint. So testers must clarify the scope impact, the timeline impact, and the testing effort required for this change. So never assume, always discuss with the team and then decide. You should not assume anything. So there are some common mistakes testers make are such as not updating the test cases after change, missing the regression testing, assuming developers will handle everything, and not asking questions during the refinement. So the change management fails because of the silence. Let's summarize today's session. So in Agile, requirement changes are expected. The change management is continuous. Testers play a critical role in the change management, and the communication is most important than documentation. So if you understand the change, you understand Agile. So if you are working in Agile project, mastering requirement change management will make you a strong and reliable tester. So in the next video, we will cover handling last minute changes, regression testing strategies in Agile, and real interview questions. So if this session helped you, like the video, share it with your team, and subscribe to the Quality Analyst. Remember, Agile is not about speed. Agile is about adapting smartly. Happy testing, and I will see you in the next session.